When I started this channel, I had a lot of Muslims and religious people in general ask me, why do I bother spending my time talking about religion when I no longer believe in a God? Why do I spend my days fixated on the things that they find important when I don't value them anymore? Why don't I just move on and forget it? Why am I obsessed with religion? But there's another kind of person who reaches out to me, who sends me messages ever since I started this channel. And that's the ex-Muslim who can't speak out due to fear of the repercussions from their family, from their loved ones, from their community. Because leaving a religion has real tangible consequences, whether I believe in it or not. So this is why I do this channel, to be the voice for the people who can't speak out, and to share the stories of people who otherwise would remain hidden in silence and in fear. And with me today is Haram Doodles, who will share one of those stories.
I don't know what my future brings. I want to get married and start a family, but I can't imagine subjecting someone else to a family like mine. Nor do I think anyone would agree to live a double life with me. I am a 30-year-old African woman living in a European country. My family are very strict Muslims, and my dad was a well known sheikh in my country. I wore a hijab and long skirts since the age of 5. Around age 12, I was banned from wearing pants and only wore long skirts and dresses. I was taught that makeup, perfumes, and high heels are haram. But it was difficult for my family to enforce all these rules, especially as we live in the West, where these things are normalized. I still wear the hijab and long skirts around my immediate family. But I get told to dress extra Islamic around extended family or friends of my family as my mom fears their judgment. Purely out of luck, I am the first woman in my family to not get FGM. My family decided to wait until I turned 12 because we were too busy escaping the civil war in our country when I was younger. Unlike my older sisters who were excited to get the procedure as they were too young to understand it, I was old enough to refuse and try to get out of it. At that point, I knew that the practice was controversial and not compulsory in Islam. I cried and threw a huge tantrum. But this wasn't enough to get me out of it. I found it funny when the doctor asked me if I was married, even though I was clearly a child. She then told me that she never did FGM before and asked me why I wanted it. All I could do was stare at her. I didn't have the courage to tell her that my family were making me. I don't fully remember what happened next, but the doctor recommended to my family that I don't get FGM because it was too risky for me as I was too old. I have never been more relieved in my life. I left Islam in my early 20s. My sister found out after she went snooping around in my room. I saw my laptop open and that she saw my search history. I also noticed that she searched for an imam to convert me back. I quickly packed my clothes and left. My sister didn't confront me about my disbelief, but my mom did send me a video of someone converting back to Islam, which leads me to believe that my sister told her. I also had a lot of angry phone calls from my mom, who said a lot of things that still hurt me to this day. She asked me if I wanted to be a prostitute and threatened to make dua for me to go to hell, that I never find happiness in this life or the next, and that I get leprosy. As you know in Islam, a mother's dua for or against her kid is always accepted no matter what. So these were common threats from her, although they were never this severe until then. While I was living away from my family, my mom also made me lie to everyone and pretend I still lived with her. She feared that people would judge her for having an unmarried daughter living by herself. A lot of stuff happened since then. A few family members died, and my mom got very sick. A few months ago, I moved back in with them, and I'm now trying to rebuild a relationship with them. Although it's safe to say our relationship is broken beyond repair, I still love them and want them in my life despite what they said and did to me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share the story, Haram Doodles. I think it's so much more powerful to just hear a voice and see a face that can be just a representation of that story.
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing the story to me. And, as hard as it was to read it, I really just, there are so many stories out there that we need to be able to tell and give voice to ex-Muslims who are often feeling like they're voiceless. And so just appreciate you bringing these to life in a different way and that they can still be told.
It's the least I can do, and the reality, the sad reality is I get messages from people all the time with these kinds of stories, and they share them with me in private, and all I can really do is, be someone who reads what they're saying and just listen sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that by sharing stories like this, people understand the repercussions and harms of religion. Because the thing that we'll hear time and time again, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is when Muslims in particular hear stories like this, they'll say, well, this isn't Islam's fault. This is just a case of bad parenting, harmful, toxic parenting, nothing to do with Islam. Did you think that that could be the case when I first shared that story with you?
Not at all. I mean, just in reading the story, you see the sort of common denominator of Islam in there, right? And even I've even heard like, well, FGM isn't a thing in Islam. It's Arabs. There's certain Arabs or communities that maybe do that. And that's bullshit because there is stuff written in hadith that like really kind of directly ties to it and anyone can pick it up and take it in a good way and go, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore. And someone else can pick it up and go, this is what we're going to do for everybody and all the girls in the family. And so, and you can see the misogyny that's layered in all of this, right? Everything from her dressing to her not showing up in family events dressed in a certain way to her even being at home and living at home and her sister, like all of them sort of attacking her as well. Women usually take the brunt of that attack way harder than, right, like they're getting attacked way more than I think often men are. Not to say that they aren't, but it's also a very different kind of attack. It's the attack on their bodies, it's the attack on their minds and their, everything from their appearance to what they're practicing. And I think oftentimes men don't really have to deal with a lot of that stuff, especially when it comes to hijab and stuff, right? Imagine if all the men started wearing hijab, it would be a different story now.
I have a feeling hijabs wouldn't be accepted and wouldn't be around.
Seriously.
That's my hunch.
Yeah, they'd be banned.
Banned, but from Muslims
Yeah,
for a
exactly.
change. The thing that really came through to me, like a theme that came through to me as I was reading the story, was the judgment.
Mm,
So, judgment from your own loved ones, judgment from her sister who was snooping on her, and judgment from her mother. And beyond that, even the layer of the mother's fear of the judgment of the community if they knew that her daughter was unmarried and living alone.
right. And I think oftentimes for us, being public is the thing that scares the shit out of Muslims, right? Like that's the one thing they don't want us to do. They're like, sure, if you want to leave, but do it quietly. If you want to do this, do it quiet. Like everything has to be very silent, very discreet. And I think the fact that you and I, all of us, we're telling these stories, we're able to be, we have the privilege of being here, even with a risk to our safety, right? But the fact that we can be here and tell these stories, even that is so just, so they see it as an attack. Um, but what they don't see is the harm that it causes on us as humans. Even that judgment. Can you imagine like living with that judgment for years and years? I mean, we all do that too with our families, right? A lot of us hear very similar judgments from our families, but it's not just them. It's the extended family. It's the neighbors. It's like the entire community ends up finding out one way or another, right? Because everyone talks. And that's okay. We're humans. We talk. We gossip. We do all that. But the fact that we can, like in the West, everything is so normalized, right? Like we can walk outside wearing anything. We can believe what we want to believe and no one bats an eye. But the minute it's us doing it, our families and they become like our worst enemies. And that's just the saddest part about all of this.
That really is the saddest part. And the thing that always comes to mind when people ask me, not even necessarily people who are Muslim or theists, but just people in general, when they find out that I do this channel, for example,
Yeah.
they say, oh, well, what's really the big deal? I mean, Why can't someone just practice their religion? And as long as they do it, privately, what's it business of yours, essentially?
Right.
And the first thing that comes to mind for me is this element of fear. And when it comes to a family, it's how, you know, I think a lot of us grow up believing that the thing that matters the most, the bond that can never be broken in life, is the bond you have with your family. They're the ones that are going to support you through tough times. They're the ones who've been with you your whole life, the ones who know you the best. And one of the main harms of a religion like Islam, and it's not exclusive to just Islam, but it exists in Islam, is that the the God of Islam, the religion, comes first. It can destroy those relationships, those families, because what Muslims are taught is that your relationship with Allah, with God, is the primary relationship. And you can really see it here, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that it all ties back to that too, right? Like everything, even the decisions that were made about around like FGM, the decisions that were made around like her dressing a particular way, her living a particular way, it's all kind of wrapped up within this bubble of Islam. And it just, that's what I think makes it feel so much like a cult, is when we get really kind of stuck in that bubble too. And I don't blame her, right? Like at the end of the day, she's going, I still love my family because they're still family. And there's a lot of us that end up going, you know what, I'm going to choose my own family. I'm going to choose my own friend. And that's okay too. And there's many of us that don't want to lose our family either, because that's kind of what feels, even if we might be living in a different country, our family still feels like home. And so, her desire to kind of stay there, regardless of the hardship that she's facing. I don't know how she's doing it. Just amazing that you're able to sort of, the anger and frustration and all the things that keep bubbling up when you're living with Muslim family, especially when they're Islamists. In this situation, her family are Islamists. A lot of us have discount Islamist families that might act very liberal or progressive, but they're actually not. Because when the minute they hear about us, they're like, "Okay, no, how dare you? How dare you become an ex-Muslim?" And yeah, it's just, that's the one thing that stuck out to me in the story too, was that how, regardless of everything, she still wanted to be back with her family, and to make amends with the fact that like they're different and she's different, and yet she's still having to maybe conform a little bit.
That's the really tough part, I think, for anyone who is an ex-Muslim who leaves Islam when their family's still practicing, is you end up being put in this position where you feel like you're the problem,
Right.
where you feel this pressure of why can't you just go with the program? And this is where it does kind of feel like a cult, where you have all this pressure from within, but also from outside, from the people closest to you,
Yeah.
of can you just stick to the path that we're all on?
Right.
And that's the really hard part for me, when you even see that her own mother made a prayer for her to get leprosy.
Yeah. And the fact that I could say like the worst things to you, and I could probably pray for the worst things to happen to you, but the fact that her mom is doing it out of this hope at the end of the day, that like this sort of false hope that she's going to come back to Islam. And I think that's something that really kind of, I think, just hurts us along the way, like repeatedly, right? Because this person's just sitting there with so much hope that, okay, yeah, one day this person's going to come back. And of course, you and I have heard this too, right? Like, oh, you weren't even Muslim to begin with. Like, you never knew. Go back and read what Islam says. And it's like, yeah, that's why we're here.
So do you think in a strange way, the mother calling for her daughter to get leprosy is actually an act of love to scare to
Yeah,
scare her daughter straight?
yeah, probably. Yeah. Because I can't imagine it. What other motivation can there be for someone to like harm their own child, if not for a place in heaven and rewards points to heaven? And also, like, I think parents often grow up with this sort of idea that, like, I have to be the one to make sure my child is on the right path. And if I'm not doing my job, then Allah's going to punish me too. And so it's like that. There's a selfishness there too, that like they're trying to save their own butts, which unfortunately it's like, well, we're all just gonna die. But but that's what makes it harder is that the parents can't literally mentally cannot let go of that. So many of us deal with that too, and it's reading the story definitely sort of gave me another perspective too, because I think it helps me even as a content creator to be able to read these diverse stories that come through. And just like you, I receive a lot of these stories. People just looking for a way that can is someone out there to listen to us? Can someone just hear me out for a second? And I think having this sort of platform that you have is such a great way to be able to continue telling these stories. And yeah, I'm just grateful for your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
And if you wanted to say something to the woman who shared the story and maybe to others who are going through
yeah.
similar experiences, what would you tell them?
I do get this question a lot. People do randomly ask me for advice. I'm like, I'm actually not a professional. Like, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a coach. I'm none of the above. I'm just a doodler. And just from personal experience and having spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people now over the last 3+ years that I've had this, I think one thing I would say is everyone's on their own journey, right? This girl is on her own journey. She's going to have to figure it out on her own, whether that means living away, living with, and she's going to have to navigate a lot of hard things and be prepared to navigate those things, right? Like I think that the one thing that's really helped me in all of this too is lowering my expectations of everybody, because at least they might surprise you, but you're not going to at least get really sad about the fact that they didn't do something for you. And so I think that's been really helpful along the way, is like lowering your expectations, knowing that you are taking a risk by being an ex-Muslim, and also that's okay. You can keep yourself safe. You can protect yourself. You can sort of make sure that you are in situations that you're with people that you trust. And even to this girl, I would say like, just I'm hopeful that she gets through this and that she comes out of this knowing that she's probably learning a lot more about herself being in this situation than maybe her family is willing to learn about her. And so there's always that plus side, as sad as that could make us. The silver lining could be that we learn a lot more about ourselves through these very sticky and very hard situations.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Haram Doodles, again. For anyone interested in seeing Haram Doodles' work, you can check it out on Instagram, and I believe you're on Twitter as well. The links are in the video description below. And Haram Doodles suggested an idea to me to maybe continue doing this as an ongoing series with other ex-Muslim content creators. So if you liked hearing the story, if you want to hear more stories like this, and if you have stories that you want to share to be read out by ex-Muslim content creator, please feel free to comment or to reach out to me privately. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter as well. All the links are in the video description too. And if you like this video, please do like it and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Secular Spirit. Thank you so much again for joining me, Haram Doodles.
Thank you.
She will definitely be back very soon, and so will I. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.